arrival, probably tired. I've been in Jerusalem, I've been in Israel, and it gets pretty hot there. It also gets very cold, and sometimes it snows, but it gets pretty hot. Somebody was thirsty, traveling from Judea, headed up to Galilee, and that's not a short walk. Not a short walk. Could have been a few days. They didn't have Uber in those days, right? You just call them up and say, pick me up, I'm going to go. Yeah, we'll bring a couple of camels and put you on there. No, he had to walk it through there. And so he arrives at this town called Sychar, and this place called Jacob's Well. And in the scripture, it talks about why it's called Jacob's Well. That's where, there's a little history there, and you can reread the passage to the history there. But the story proper begins in verse 7. And since we're in Hollywood, or near Hollywood, I'm going to talk about this drama that's probably in 3 acts. Mm-hmm. The first act consists of two scenes. The first scene is a dialogue between Jesus and the woman about the subject of water. Mm-hmm. Right? And right now, the runners are probably thinking about a lot of water. And there's probably people grabbing them and giving them water and drinking and tossing it out and keep on going. So they're talking about water. The second scene, which is in verses 16 through 26, is a dialogue or a conversation between the woman and Jesus on the subject of true worship. All right? So the first scene, talking about water. Second scene, talking about true worship. The second act, in verses 27 to 38, begins with the return of the disciples who had gone off to town to buy some food. So we have this idea that the well was away from town, and that's where the people would bring their sheep and to get refreshed and move on. When they came back, the woman leaves to tell the townspeople about this man whom she has met and had this amazing conversation. So while the woman is gone, Jesus speaks to his disciples about the urgency of his work that he's engaged in, to the point that he has very little or no interest in food. That's why they say, what, did somebody feed you?
Yeah.
Did you order something from Subway or what? You're supposed to be hungry. And he says, I got other things to be thinking about. In the third and closing act, which is the last few verses of the chapter, verses 39 to 42, we see the return of the woman with some of her people, and the climax of the story in which they confess Jesus to be the Savior of the world. And you got that? 3 acts, and all this aspect of it. We won't go through all of it. There's just a rich, rich story here.
Very rich.
But the story of the woman is very familiar to us. She is, as we're sometimes told, a Samaritan woman, right? Now, when we hear the phrase, the Samaritan woman, it has almost become synonymous with a woman of a shady past, right? We forget that Samaritan was about where she was from. Like I could say, I'm Texan, right? That's where I'm from. Though I grew up in California, I'm Californian at heart. The pastor could say, I'm from Guatemala, I'm Guatemalan, right? That's where he was born, but he's here now. So Samaritan isn't discussing or describing her character, it just tells us where she's from. At that time, the Jews and the Samaritans in biblical times did get along, and I'll explain that a little further on. Women and men, especially in that culture, kept themselves separated.